blueberry jams and jellies. And the first thing we're going to do is sanitize every one of these jars, because jams and jelly are only water bath for 10 minutes. That's not sanitary enough just to go by washing your jars. You've got to sterilize them. So I'm going to run these through the dishwasher first, and then I'll put them into boiling water for 10 minutes, and we'll make sure that everything is sterilized. And we will wash our rings and lids and put them into almost boiling water, not quite, because you don't want to mess up the seals with boiling water. But we've got to be sanitary. We don't want to get the dreaded botulism. I have 12 cups of blueberries. My jars are in the dishwasher, and I'm going to be using this lovely book that Tasha from Pine Knot Farms gave me. It's got a recipe for blueberry lemon jam that I'm very interested in. This is a no pectin method, and so I'll be using Miss Daisy Luther's recipe. This is an awesome book. If you do not have it, I would suggest you get it, especially if you're new to canning. This is a good one to give you some basics. The 12 cups of berries is equivalent to approximately 6 pints of frozen blueberries, so I'm going to need to adjust my recipe a little bit. Our recipe instructs that you are to place 3 cups of the 6 cups of organic sugar, or your sugar, over the blueberries, adding half a cup of lemon juice, kind of turning it in just a little bit, or layering it in. Cover and refrigerate overnight. So once we refrigerate overnight, then we will come back and continue the video of processing our jam. The berries have sat in the sugar and lemon juice mixture overnight, so I'm going to warm them, and then I'm going to take this potato masher and just kind of keep expressing juice, because I want to make some blueberry jelly and some blueberry jam. So we're going to see how this works. Probably with the jelly, I'm going to end up using a liquid pectin because of the ratio of sugars. I'm not sure. I'm gonna think on it and try to figure it out where I don't have to. But if all else fails, I will use the liquid pectin. Just so you can see, as these are warming up, and I'm just doing them slowly on a low heat, there's lots of juice coming through. And in my water bath canner, I've got my jars heating up. They've already been sanitized in the dishwasher. I'm gonna heat them up, get them good and hot, and then I'm just gonna heat the rings and the lids. So I'm imagining this is gonna turn into a messy job. So I've got some parchment paper down. I've got my grandmother's cast pot. I've got a sieve. I've got my Ninja. So you can see what my plan is. And a little better explanation maybe is I'm just taking scoops of the berries, putting them into the sieve, and letting them drain a little bit, which is going to put the juice into this pot. And once this pot is emptied of berries, I will strain the juice into this pot, and I'm going to put most of the berries, most likely all of the berries, into my Ninja as they're done. And I'm just going to show you with this scooper right now, just to save on a mess. And I'm going to puree them some, pulse them up, and that's going to make the jam. The juice is going to be beautiful. See how translucent that is so far? So you can see that I've got my Ninja partially full with berries. I've got berry straining here. I'm still pulling berries from the pot, But this is what I'm going to do with these. I'm just going to pump it up a little bit and get them blended down. And then I'm going to add more berries, and I'm just going to keep doing that. So the Ninja is completely full. It took all of the berries, but I've noticed a little bit of particles in the juice. So my next step is going to be to put a coffee filter in my sieve and then strain it over it back into the other pot. You can use a cheesecloth or an old pillowcase, something that you don't mind being stained or whatever. But I'm going to use a couple of coffee filters. I just set them in there, and I'm going to be real careful to strain this blueberry juice. Y'all see, I told you it was a messy job. I'm so glad I put my parchment paper down. I'm going to strain this juice and see if we can't get a more purified looking product. As you can see, this is straining slowly. But we do have some particles still seeping through, so it's going to take a couple times of doing this. And I'm just going to continue to work at that, going back and forth between this pot and this pot. And I think this is a good place for one of those fancy steamer juicers. I've got one in my Amazon wish list that I'm drooling over. I may have to move that to my cart and drool over it a little while longer and then bite that bullet and purchase it. I think they're like $80 or something, so I have to really think about stuff for a while before I purchase, but I actually do have it on my wish list. I also have the option of using a cheesecloth. I get mine from the Grove, so they're certified organic, they're unbleached. And I may add that in addition to the coffee filters and see if I can't get this really clear. As you can see, even with a coffee filter, there's still a good bit of little blueberry seeds and particles. And so I've rinsed my sieve, I've removed the coffee filters, and I'm going to add the cheesecloth. I've doubled it and laid it across the sieve, across this other pot. And now I'm going to pour that through and see what that does. Okay, so that helped a little bit more. I've rinsed this pot. Put my cheesecloth back over there. Gonna do it again. And it's helping, so I'm gonna go back and forth a couple more times. May not get every single one out of there, but I want it as clear as possible. It's getting better and better. So this final drive, I'm going to put a coffee filter in with the cheesecloth. I'm gonna run it through this last time, and we're gonna move forward. Well, I'm gonna let this finish straining, but you can see there is still a few tiny little seeds, but I'm not going to worry about it. I've done a whole lot of work to get it clear, and I may could keep on going, but for the sake of time, we're going to move on. While that's straining, I'm going to let you look and see what the jam is looking like. I'm fixing to add it back to the previous pot. Y'all see my paper towel, it's pretty messy. And get that heated back up. Okay, so I've got my messes cleaned up a little bit, getting ready to spread out for the canning part. Got my coffee going. I am a multitasker. The only thing that I can tell you, if you're a new canner or new to making jellies, which I'm new to this part of it, but I'm still a multitasker, is have your instructions before you. Because for this, doing 2 projects at one time, I'm using 2 different methods. For the jellies, I'm going to use Tasha at Pine Knot Farms muscadine grape recipe, because that worked for me when I did the scuppernons. For the jam, I'm using the lemon blueberry jam recipe from the Prepper's Canning Guide, because it is a no pectin recipe for the jam, and Tasha's is a no pectin recipe. Now I do have some liquid pectin on standby just in case something flukes with this, since I had to rest the berries in a sugar lemon juice mixture. It's already got some sugar in it, So I'm just kind of fractionating in my head and cutting down on some of the sugar that's going to be added here. And this one should be fine because in her instructions she talks about straining off extra juice and that kind of thing. So and these are looking great. I think they're just going to need to cook down a little bit and maybe thicken up a little bit with a little more sugar. And it'll be good to go. I mean, this stuff is smelling heavenly. It's looking great. And this is looking good. And it's getting hot again. So, away we go. Next step, measuring. So, I've measured my liquid juice that has been strained multiple times. There is 5 cups. So typically the recipe would call for a cup of sugar per cup of liquid. That is too much sugar for me. Also, when I originally started with the berries, letting them rest overnight, there was 3 cups of sugar in the mixture. So this already tastes sweet to me. So I'm going with half a cup of sugar per cup. So that's 2.5 cups of sugar. I've got that measured out. I use organic cane sugar. I don't have the bag. I always put my stuff in a mason jar. That's just me. And so, but I do get it at Sam's or Walmart sometimes. I'm actually planning on making an Azure standard order to get it there. Okay, so we're going to bring this to a rolling, unstoppable boil, and then we're going to add our sugars in. And I did notice something. It's already a little sheety, not much. So maybe I won't need that pectin after all. And that would be a win for me. Okay, so we've got a pretty angry boil going on. That's awesome. Let it go just a little bit longer. I might end up adding a little pat of butter to see if we can't get rid of some of this foam. I'll remove a little bit right now. We'll do that in just a bit. We can always add that at the last minute if we need to. I'm going to be adding my 2.5 cups of sugar in all at once. And stirring. Get good and melted. We're going to stick it with this pot, continuously stirring so it doesn't stick. And we're just going to cook it until we get the sheeting that we want. And then we will be ready to fill our jars. As this is heating back up, I'm going to set my jars out onto my parchment paper and have things ready for canning. Okay, we are ready to start filling our jars. Now, the original recipe had the berries resting in a lemon juice mixture. However, I don't know that that was enough. So for each of these little jars, I'm adding half a teaspoon of lemon juice just to be sure that I have enough acid. You can see back here I've got my lids and rings heated. My jars were done. So I've got these hot ones over here. I left the other ones for the jam in there at this time. So what I'm going to do is prepare these, get them ready to go into the canner, then remove those and have the other mixture ready. Okay, so the lemon juice is added, and now I have my supplies here. I have my debubbler measurer, I have my magnet, I have a lifter, and vinegar sprayed paper towel to get these rims super clean, because with sticky stuff or anything else that could possibly be on the rims, you won't get a good seal. So you've got to get it off of there. And I'm going to fill these jars to a 1/4 inch headspace. That's the recommendation by Ball for jams and jellies. And I'll let you see that when I get there. I'm trying to go real slow because I don't want to make a splashing mess. This is very messy. Now then, we're going to stick our debubbler in there. Just kind of give it a stir. Not really bubbles in that, but we just want to make sure. So we'll move on over and we're going to measure. There you go. Got a tad more to add. Just a tad. Just maybe a few drops to get it where it needs to be. Now, I did not skim off this top as well as I should have, so I'm fixing to add a little butter and see if I can't get that cleared up. Now this jar, I'll just take my little spoon and get that little bit of skim off of there. But that was a step I forgot. Don't panic if you forget something. You can always go back and fix your little mistakes. Okay, so that helped. And there may be a little bit, but we'll get it if it looks bad on the jars. We'll pull it off at that time. So we're going to continue to fill our jars. And you can see I removed that little bit of skim. And we're at our 1/4 inch headspace. And we're going to press on. Ooh, that's a little warm. Move that a little closer. This is so sticky messy. And I'm a little clumsy, so I have to do what I can do to save as much mess as possible. As you can see, that's sheeting really well. It should set up nicely. And no liquid pectin used, so that's awesome. Debubble a little bit, measure, and we are there. So we will wipe our rim super well. I'm going to come back and do that 2 or 3 times. I'm not even going to take a chance. I'm also going to remove a little bit more skim. Looks like little seeds floated to the top there, so that's good. We'll get rid of that too. And we'll just keep wiping and filling jars. And I'll bring you back when this is done. The jars are completely full. The rims have been wiped multiple times. The great thing about parchment paper is where I've spilled, I can just wipe that up with my vinegar and it pulls it right off. So I'm keeping a pretty clean working space. I set my plastic utensils over here with the berries that I was using just for a moment while I'll put these lids on and get these into the canner and get the next jars out so we can get the jam going. Getting all the lids on and just finger tight. They are ready to go into the water bath canner for their 10 minutes. They will be at a rapid boil for 10 minutes, and then we will let them sit for 5. As you can see, I've gotten the empty jars over here, the hot jars, and I've gotten these 6 jars of jelly into the canner, and they're boiling, so we're going to put the lid on, get them bubbly, and then we're going to set the timer for the 10 minutes. And in the meantime, while that's all going on, we're going to work on our jam. You may be wondering why or how I'm going to keep these jars hot. So I turned them upside down to keep from contaminating the rims, and I've got a fresh clean towel, and I'm going to lay that over that while I'm finishing up on the jam, and that'll keep these good and warm. I've set my rings and lids back on the burners. The jelly is processing, and this is heating back up. So when I measured out these berries, there were 6 cups. I'm going to be using half the amount of sugar, so that is 3 cups, because there was already sugar added in the beginning. And I don't want to do a full cup extra per cup. So we're going to stir this in, let it cook down for a little bit, and then we'll jar it up and water bath can it. Okay, so the first batch of jelly is completely processed. We're going to let it sit for 5 minutes. And then we should be ready to jar up the jam and move it over into the canner and get it going. And but the jelly is already singing to me. Those lids have pinged just as soon as I started setting them out on my parchment paper cover towel. I was afraid that there just might be a little jelly on that jar, and I sure didn't want that to get on my good canning towels. So again, I get this from the Grove. If you're not a customer of the Grove or you're interested in that, I am going to add my share it link into the description on my about page. I just haven't done that yet, so be looking for that. And then you can get a free gift and become a VIP member too. Get free shipping, monthly order as you wish. I use all kinds of their products. I use their lip balms, their hand soaps, laundry detergent. Good stuff. All right, same procedure as before. Got my hot jars. I'm gonna get these turned over carefully. They're still pretty warm. They're not so hot you can't handle them. And I'm gonna add my half teaspoon of lemon juice for extra acid, just to be sure. Lemon juice is added, and it's the same procedure as before. We're gonna spoon our jam in to 1/4 inch headspace. It's looking really good. Get rid of this metal spoon. Move to my ladle. I'm gonna do this slowly. It's gonna be messy. Okay, so let's debubble. Stir that up really good. I'll set that in a jar just to keep it clean off my space. All right, and you see how messy that lid is, that rim? I'm gonna go ahead and wipe some of that so that it doesn't get really hard to wipe. We've got our 1/4 inch head space. And now I'm going to finish filling these jars, and then I'll come back and wipe again, add my lids, rings, finger tight, and get them in the canner, and we'll get this processed. So you can rewind to the jelly making to see how I did that, just to make sure if you're uncertain. But it's the same principle. You fill it to a 1/4 inch head space. If you're uncomfortable with that, you can always measure. You see I'm there. Keep your rims super clean. Make sure everything's clean and hot, and you should be good to go. Jars are filled, some of them, and the rims are wiped down super good. But look, I've got plenty extra left over. I didn't have enough jars sanitized, so I'm going to sanitize some pint jars, a couple of them, and fill this up. And then we'll have a couple of bigger jars to go along with all of our little ones. And this is just how I sanitize those 2 extra jars. I just use the same water, so I'm not wasting water. I'm repurposing, I'm multitasking. Gonna have these 2 jars ready for the rest of this in just a moment. And we'll heat up some lids and rings too. So you're aware, on these pint-sized jars, I added a teaspoon of lemon juice instead of half a teaspoon that I used in these smaller jars, just to be sure I had enough acid. So everything's ready to go in the canner. Gonna process just like before. Gonna let it sit just like before. And then I'll let my jars all sit overnight without disturbing them. And I'll have my blueberry jellies and jams from blueberries that I had frozen back in July after picking them at a friend's house. Okay, these jam jars are processed and they've sat there 5 minutes. So they are ready to come out of the canner, cool down with the others for 24 hours, undisturbed. Thanks for watching.